I'm Mel.
I'm Sarah.
And I'm Beck. And this is We Are Woman.
Today we're talking about touch. Touch in both FBR Breathwork and also touch in general as part of being human. Because when we started talking about this episode, we realised how naturally touch exists in all of our lives without us even really thinking about it. Like the way we hold children when they cry, or we put a hand on someone when they're upset. And we might even rub our chest when we're anxious or overwhelmed, or the way we reach for someone's hand when something feels hard. There's something really instinctive about it. Humans naturally use touch to comfort, to regulate, ground and connect, and probably so much more. Touch in FBR breathwork is a way of bringing awareness to the body and supporting the nervous system. Sometimes it's just helping someone feel where they're holding, or helping them feel supported in a moment where they might otherwise feel alone in what's happening. And touch is interesting because it's so simple, but it can also be really layered. It can soothe us and soften us, bring things up. It can help us feel safe. It can also make us realise where we don't quite feel safe yet. And maybe part of that is because touch speaks to really early parts of us, parts that existed before we even had language for what we're feeling. So today, we really just wanted to explore touch inside FBR breathwork and more broadly as something deeply human. And it's funny because when we first said let's do an episode on touch, I thought it would feel quite straightforward. And then the more I reflected on it, the more I realized how much is actually inside this topic. So, Sarah, I'm curious, when you think about touch, where does your mind and your body go first?
Yeah, thanks, Mel. I first go towards, for some reason, my mind goes towards a mother holding her child.
Mm.
I'm not sure why that came up, but that's just where my mind first goes to. And yeah, maybe there's like quite a primal, intuitive, instinctive piece in that of that is a very natural, beautiful, innocent form of touch, and how touch is very, very maybe obvious for me. But yeah, then of course there's so many different ways that we can touch one another. As in conversation, we might place a hand on someone's shoulder or on someone's leg or something, and it's a way of interacting, it's a way of communicating. And then what comes up next is that I also feel in our society, because so much of our society is now digital, online, in the
Mm.
online realms, but also just in day-to-day life, that people might be busy or just walking around, that there's a quite a lost, yeah, maybe the lost art of touch. Yeah, lost, it's kind of like a lost language a little bit. I think we can get lost into the more storytelling realms or the conversational realms quite quickly these days, as opposed to coming back to maybe the simplicity of simply touching and the power of that. So yeah, there's sort of like many different layers that come up for me initially, and I'm sure there's many different to explore throughout this conversation. But yeah, that's initially what comes up for me. What comes up for you, Mel?
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you mentioned that it's multi-layered, Sarah, because I think this is why this episode is going to be such a beautiful exploration because there's so many avenues we can go here. I really like that you mentioned that it's pre-verbal. And I think what comes online for me straight away is that pre-verbal therefore means we don't need the mind. We don't need to be thinking. And it's a way that we can bring ourselves back into our bodies. And you mentioned in this modern world where we can feel quite sort of busy and overstimulated and rushed. And sometimes I wonder, there are moments where I think, have I even connected with my body today? Or do I even know where I am or feel myself in this space? And I think that touch is such a beautiful way just to bring your own presence back to yourself as well. So I know in this episode, today we're going to explore how we use touch in FBR breathwork, so therefore touching others. But I think there's also a really beautiful exploration available in how we touch ourselves and reconnect back to our bodies and feel ourselves and bring our awareness back to that space of ourselves and where we are in this world. Like, can you feel yourself in your day and in what you're doing?
Mm. Yeah, definitely. I feel sometimes I do this like little routine of we don't have a bath, so I sometimes sit in the shower and then I give
Mm.
myself a little massage while sitting in the shower. And it's just really nice because it does really help me throughout the day. That little, maybe it's like a 2 minute window or something, just sitting there and kind of just giving myself a massage and with some soap and just kind of rubbing it in. And it does feel different. The rest of the day feels different. I
Yeah.
notice. And I think this is why people go to massages and things like that. Or and body work is like a variety of different forms of body work, I suppose, is they're all ways of coming back to more primal intuitive
Mm.
instincts, right? And really getting out of the head pretty much because so much of our energy is spent up like above the shoulders, right? So it's just like really coming into the body, and touch is just a very clear and direct way of doing that, which is why I love it so much during breath work, which is what we do in FBR breath work.
Mm.
It's just such a simple and easy way to come back into the body. I think that and when we're in the body and when we're actually with the sensations of touch, we can't be in the future or the past. And I think that's
Mm.
why it's so powerful. We can't really, like, if we're actually present with the touch, we can't really be in tomorrow or in yesterday with our mind, or in an hour's time, or in 3 years, whatever it may be. We're actually just present in the moment. And I mean, that in of itself is super soothing to just to come back into presence. I mean, most of our concerns and worries in life are because of being in the future or in the past. Um,
Mm.
and I think that's where most of our anxieties or other forms of stress and overwhelm and all these kind of things come from, is that our mind travels into past and future scenarios. And yeah, touch is just such a powerful way to come back to presence. I think that's pretty much, as far as I can see now, the simplicity of the power of it. And then obviously there's a variety of different touch that we can receive and give that's gonna potentially influence how we come back into that present moment. But that's what it's ultimately that it's like we become connected back into life because we're present. Yeah, curious to hear your thoughts on that, Mel. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that we can speak to touch simply almost as a tool, right? A tool for
Mm,
presence. And it's like, where else can you be if you've got your hand on, for example, your diaphragm and you feel into that? You can't be anywhere else. You are in real time, in the moment, and you're with your diaphragm and your hand. And I think even that as a tool, just that awareness and that touch is so helpful. And I really want to also reiterate that, yeah, that's why touch in FBR just feels so, so incredible for the nervous system. And I was saying this
mm,
before we jumped on this. It's not uncommon for breathers, new time breathers with us to finish and then be like, what was that? What did you guys
mm,
do differently to other techniques that I've used or other breath work that I have experienced? And I think we can put a lot of that, if not all of it, but we train in so many other areas, but we can put a lot of
mm,
that down to the touch. It is the language of our work, this FBR
mm,
breath work.
yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. I would agree with that. It's like so in the practice itself, we work with the breath, obviously, as the primary stimulus, I suppose. Like we introduce a stimulus, which is the breath.
Mm.
Start to breathe in a conscious, connected way, which very simply means we take away the pauses at the top and the bottom of the breath and start to loop the breath as more of one breath, as opposed to the inhale and the exhale being separate. It becomes more of a oneness in the breath, and that then creates that altered state of consciousness as well. And essentially, we're going into a non-habituated way of breathing, which then allows the habits that we run the most to come forward. So that's where we then where we then as practitioners come in with touch and body work, right, to support the process of repatterning of old incomplete reflexes, of habituated patterns in the system. And yeah, so there's the so that we have the breath, we have touch, and we have sound, and then we have movement. Those are kind of like the primary aspects that we work in FBR breathwork. And I think breath is such a primary part of being alive as a being. Like, what is the first thing that we do in this world when we're born as a baby? We take a breath, right? And then when we leave, we let the breath go. Yeah, when we pass on or die out of this body. And then what's the second thing? Touch. And then very quickly after, sound. Yeah. So these are and it's not words just yet. It's not meaning making. It's simply sounds and touch, but particularly touch. And there's been a whole lot of research done on this, on attachment theory, on how well babies attach to their mothers depending on their very first imprint in this world. So the moment they come out of the belly, and how they are held in those very, like, those first few seconds is going to very much determine pretty much the rest of their life. And that's just super fascinating to me. And then obviously all the other moments where we either didn't or did receive nurturing touch from our caregivers. And I'm reading a book at the moment, actually. It's called The Continuum. And I'm still in the beginning of the book, but it's actually about how in more ancient tribes, so in tribes, how the mothers have the children for, I think it was like for about 2 or 3 years, depending on also the child's development and what the child naturally gets sort of drawn to. They carry the child skin to skin on their chest, like pretty much all the time. There's skin to skin contact, even if the mom is like gardening or doing stuff around just in life, like doing things. It's not, they don't actually put the child down and then start doing things, or they might bathe together, or like a lot of things just happen in relationship and happen in touch. And they've kind of studied these tribes and observed the difference between those humans and Western societies, and the differences in mental health and overall happiness and satisfaction and contentment in life is huge. These people are just very content and very happy. And the author of this book believes that is because they have this fundamental deep sense of rightness. I am right, I am good in some way, because they have been lovingly held. Because it's actually, if we look at apes, I mean, it's not very normal to put a little ape in a little, let's say, little basket or something outside of the mother, right? The ape is constantly on the mother's chest. And it's only been of recent that we really actually sort of separated the child from the mother. And yeah, there's quite a bit of research on this. And I think there's more coming as well on the impact that's having on humans. And I suppose like what we're doing with FBR breathwork is we're actually reparenting. Like we're going back to those really early moments sometimes in life. And I know for myself, I'm curious for you, Mel, but I know for myself and some of the clients that I work with that we would actually go back to very early years, like between 0 and 3 somewhere in breathwork. And that touch wasn't maybe received in the right moment or in the right way, or there was and that's not to wrong anyone, by the way. It's just simply misunderstood in a lot of ways, right? It's not to say the parent did it wrong or something. It's just simply there hasn't been much awareness around it. It's just been ignorant for a lot of people, a lot of ignorance around it. But that there's a reparenting moment that happens when we actually do go back to those early moments, and that we actually start to feel into what would touch feel like to be received when I'm going through this particular emotion or this particular state. And in that is where the healing then starts to occur. That's where we start to really come back to, and based on the book that I'm reading, what I'm understanding now is we're really coming back to this sense of rightness in ourselves, that we are right, we're not wrong somehow, because if we haven't been held enough, there starts to develop this sense in us that something about us or in us could be wrong or bad
Mm.
somehow. And this is where shame comes in a lot of like this. That's why I find shame such an interesting emotion, but it's essentially a form of a sense of being wrong in the world. And then
Mm.
also just a lot of grief because there's just this sort of loneliness for the child. And I think I think that's what we're repairing in breathwork. And I think
Yeah.
that's why I think this work, particularly now, is so incredibly important because we are also in an epidemic of loneliness. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a bit of a rant,
Yeah.
but it was in a bit of a flow. I'm
Oh,
super curious, Mel, what you heard,
yeah.
what your thoughts
Honestly,
are on that.
Sarah, I just loved everything that you went into. And yeah, I honestly loved it on the point of, yeah, speaking into sort of having, I suppose, a corrective experience in a breathwork journey from those years of 0 to 3. I have had a breathwork journey whereby this came up, and then it's not uncommon for it to come up every now and then in breath sessions that I have for myself, whereby I felt back into being a baby crying and what I think is in my cot, but being a baby crying and not being picked up. And
Mm,
I don't know why. And that's not to suggest that my parents were neglecting me, or if whether or not they engaged in crying it out techniques that this modern world encourages. Not going to go into any of that. But I
mm,
have this felt sense of being a baby crying, and I can hear myself crying and never being picked up. And I have had moments in the breath journeys whereby that has been corrected, I suppose, is the word, where I have been held by a facilitator in that moment, or someone has come over and touched me. When I say held, I mean touch. So it might be holding my hand or touching my heart space or somewhere where was what looked appropriate at the time. And that has been so healing. And it still comes back, and that's okay. But there's just more of an awareness now. And I love that you spoke into that I can resonate with that. I now feel right. There's not shame there that
mm,
I was not good enough to be picked up as a baby, or I was
mm,
wrong, so therefore I was left
mm,
alone. And I wonder if this speaks into that, almost that modern disconnection from touch that we mentioned earlier, in the sense that, I mean, I don't know, my parents were amazing. I don't know why I wasn't picked up in that moment. However, was it because we have slowly moved away from carrying our children all the time, for example, and having them on us? And then I think this just opens up such a great conversation about how we've disconnected ourselves from touch, maybe within ourselves, within others, and then what that brings up for us. And then, yeah, those feelings of wrongness or not being right, the feelings of shame. And then,
mm,
can we now seek touch? Can we reach out for touch? Do we feel worthy of being held and touched? And then for others, there might be some other examples, like, is touch performed, or is it completely absent, or is it sexualized, or anything like that? So it's just interesting to see how just this modern way of touch, or even disconnection from touch, and what those ripple effects are in our lives now, even as we're fully grown adults sitting here having this conversation.
mm. Yeah, I think it's actually the more we the more we kind of talk about it, the more I'm feeling into the depth of this
Yeah,
topic, really. Yeah,
this
like
is a big one.
yeah, it really ripples through in so many ways.
Mm.
Yeah, look, I think we're becoming more afraid of intimacy overall.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like whether that's through touch or whether that's through actually looking someone in the eye when we have a conversation
Mm.
with them across the table, yeah, or whether that's just really sensing into our feelings and feeling the other person and just this actual presencing with someone. And I think what I see, at least personally, I might be biased based on my my work and the world that I'm sort of immersed in and the filters that I have, but that what seems to be happening is that there is a longing in our society to come back to spaces of intimacy and connection. That's why I think things like breath work and retreats and
Mm,
wellness spaces are more on the rise, because I do think we have this in us, this need for community and connection. And yeah, look, particularly with the coming of AI and so on,
mm,
I mean, who knows what's all going to unfold on that front, but
mm.
I think that needs only going to grow more, to really start to come back to our humanity. I suppose that's the best way I can put it. It's like, what actually makes us human? Is it because we know how to calculate all these things? Is it because we can create robots, or is it actually because we are a bit more primal? I suppose like we've gone so far in this end of the mind. Almost the
Mm,
mind is almost has become a religion of its own, right? It's like if you're
mm.
not smart, you're almost like, what are you worth? A little bit, a little bit. And that's also pretty much our whole education system is geared towards that,
Yeah.
right? And
Mm,
with the coming of AI, I do think that's changing. So that's a really interesting thing to see, I think, as well, is that there is actually, because a lot of the intellectual work in some way can actually be done by AI now. Like,
yeah.
I mean, the amount of stuff that I do with AI that I would otherwise do myself. I'm like, am I actually becoming dumber? Like that's kind of like, on some level, probably, yeah, because I'm automating a lot, and it's kind of like the most simple things I'm asking AI or AI to do. So there is a certain difference in intelligence, I suppose, that starts to happen. But what I also see is this deeper emotional intelligence and spiritual intelligence that I do
Mm,
see emerging as well. And with that comes physical intelligence as well. And with that comes, yeah, things like touch and breath and movement and all of these kind of things. So yeah, look, I mean, now I went on another little little sidetrack, but it does seem relevant to, yeah, to explore like the deeper longing that I believe is really
mm,
in our humanity. And I think more of us are starting to feel that. Um,
yeah, for sure.
and then I think even like, I mean, I don't know the stats around this, but in marriages and in families, like how much is there actually loving touch on a daily
Yeah.
basis between the couple, between the parents, and then obviously with the children? How much is there? How are we kind of just coexisting all together,
Mm,
or are we actually in harmony with one another and actually living and being alive together as humans, right? And I think a
mm,
lot of that has to do systematically with also just how busy we are, most of
yep.
us. So yeah, there's a lot of different layers to explore there, I suppose. But yeah, like, and I mean, the breath work is definitely a really powerful way, whether that is in a group circle or in a one-on-one practice, is to really explore, where am I out of touch? Funny enough, where am I out of touch with myself or different body
Mm,
parts of myself? Because I do really believe that the road back to more harmony is through our own bodies and through community
yeah.
connections. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love that you actually, back to your point of AI, I think, what came up for me, and it's something that we all stand by as facilitators at FBR Breathwork, is a lot of people will say to us, well, why don't you offer this online? Can I train online, or do you do your breathwork sessions online? And this is exactly why we don't, because I mean, it's kind of cool because we can't be replaced by AI, right? But touch is what makes this practice so amazing, and it's what makes it so grounding, and it's nurturing, and it's
Mm-hmm.
safe. And this is why, like, back to the online piece, not only is it um, that we are living in this modern world and we're going that direction towards more AI, but this is the time more than ever we need these primal reminders, or a re-remembering, or a coming home to ourselves. And this is exactly why our practice is based on touch. So therefore, we
Mm.
can't offer it online. We never train online. We all went through, and I know for myself, it
Mm.
was 12 months plus of in-person training. So both in Byron, in Mullum, in Bali, like, it was a constant in-person training. It's not something that can be offered online, because touch is just so important to FBR breathwork, but to us as humans as well.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that about this practice. And I know that Edward has been really quite clear with that from the
Mm,
Edward. So Edward Dangerfield is the founder of the technique of FBR Breathwork. And he's been just super crystal clear in his integrity and his vision around that of this is just a practice that we just don't offer online. And it makes sense
mm,
because touch is almost one of the primary aspects of the practice. So you can't offer it online. So that's pretty simple.
mm,
But
mm.
there's something really bold and clear about that because it will be
Yeah.
from a marketing point of view, you can think potentially it will be better to go online because you can reach more
Mm.
people and
Yeah,
so
more
on.
people.
But
Mm,
what I'm seeing is actually the reason this practice stands out is because we're so integral with our values.
mm,
And everyone that's gone through the training, as you said, Mel, has gone through the in-person training,
mm.
has received that same. Not, we haven't like as teachers in the space, I don't remember me having ever shared that per se. It's just something that students realize through the
Yeah,
training. It's like this is an in-person practice because it's
100%.
you can't really do it online because it's
Mm,
that's not the type of practice it is. So it's
yeah.
I think that just that is a natural realization that emerges in the space as you start to
Mm,
work with the practice. And I think also even for like last night we had a breathwork circle in Byron, which was amazing, really beautiful group, and people are like really connecting with the technique, and it just really like this is such a powerful form of breathwork because it is
mm,
so based around community and based around integrity. And
mm.
ultimately it might be a slower path for, I guess, the technique in some way, like in terms of the spreading of the technique and having
Yeah.
people, be supported through this particular technique. It might feel a bit slower, but it's way more in harmony with nature. It's way more integral with how nature would actually flow and operate and move um with life as more of a mycelium
Mm,
network, I suppose, as opposed to just like growth marketing strategies. And it's so much more organic in that way. And I love that
mm.
about this practice. And I actually think this is almost a feminine way of doing business. This
Yeah,
just came through as I
yeah.
was talking about it, and as we are on this podcast talking a lot about also coming back to the feminine energy
Mm,
within all the humans, but I suppose within all life and in business even. And it's the way it's not even the practice itself or the technique itself, but actually the way we teach it and the way we spread the technique is even feminine, you can say, is
mm,
more organic. Yeah, it's not push through growth marketing strategies. It's really done in circles and in integrity and in community. I think that's what makes this so powerful as one of the reasons why the practice is powerful, because I think people feel the integrity of that. And the touch
mm,
work in every circle, we have a 1-to-5 ratio, for example. So for one practitioner, there's not more than 5 breathers. So if we have more than 5 breathers in the circle, there need to be at least 2 practitioners present.
mm,
And again, that's really to really honor the power of the touch during a practice and to really have people be supported really well through the touch work that we offer. Yeah.
mm. Yeah, because it's touch is such a simple word and it is such a simple concept, as we said, but just to nuance that for a little bit, touch is also so layered. When we say we use touch in FBR breathwork, we're not just simply putting a hand, on your neck and you think, oh, gee, that feels nice, which it does, by the way. But it's like we're able to access, we can do organ massage, we can access fascia, we
Mm.
can have the body soften areas that it's been unconsciously bracing. We can see areas that we think, oh, I wonder what's going to happen if I touch here for this breather. And then the body completely relaxes. Or the reverse, like what would happen if we brought breath in here? And we might say something like, breathe into my hand. And then we see what
Mm.
happens. So while it's such a simple word and it's simple concept, it is so potent in our work. And as we said, that's why we train in the body work, the touch work. We sometimes refer to it as body work for 12 months because we can access so much. It's not just a simple, oh, that's nice to have my hand held, which it is also. It also, we can talk into nervous systems and different systems in the body. And yeah, it's actually quite incredible and it's quite magical. And it's not simply just a hand on the body somewhere. And yes, it
Mm-hmm.
is at the same time. you know?
Yeah, I hear you. It's it's quite intentionally placed touch. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's what you're kind of referring to. It's like
Mm.
the yeah, like we might facilitate. We always facilitate a process of change. I think we can
Mm.
make that statement. And I don't often say always, but I think in this case I can actually say that we actually always
We do.
facilitate a process of change. And change for some humans means if they have more of a rigid structure in their body, more tenseness, it means touch that is going to support a softening around
Mm.
that. So that might be more softer touch or more firm in the beginning, but with a softness then later on to actually facilitate the process of change there. So there's that. Then if someone has a fair bit of looseness in their body, actually there might be not enough structure. We might bring in touch
Mm.
in a way that is a bit more firm, but it's actually to support for that particular human, for that particular body and that particular nervous system. They would actually benefit really well with a bit more holding and structure.
Mm.
And then yeah, like you were speaking into, Mel, like sometimes touch comes into particular parts of the body because we can see that someone is either over or under breathing or developed, you can say, in that particular area of the body. So we might bring in touch to
Mm.
actually open the space, or we might bring in touch to contain the space. And then we can bring in touch to soften something or to actually contract something, depending, and then something else might soften. So our body is very smart in creating compensations where
Mm.
other parts are maybe either over or under efforting. Yeah. Our body
Yeah.
is very smart in doing that. So what we're looking to do with the touch in the body work in FBR breathwork is to harmonize those over and or under compensations into more natural harmony, more flow naturally. And so that is going to facilitate a process of harmonization, of repairing of parts. So, like, and the way this can show up, for example, emotionally or mentally, is someone might be very driven for success. And then we almost need to bring them into the other end of like, would it be like to actually experience failure? Yeah.
Mm.
Or and
Yeah.
success might look like a lot of rigidity, and failure in
Mm.
their mind would be more softness and slowness, which is probably not true, and it is not true in reality, but in their mind it might be true, right? Or if someone is over efforting in their power, you can say why. Yeah, we can always come back to the question. So the touch is really much looking at where's their over or under efforting happening. Why is someone really amping up in their chest breathing, let's say? Like, why is it a pattern, right? So as a practitioner, we're always looking at why is this going on? And I don't know exactly, but I can make some sort of a sense of it based on maybe what the human has told me before they went into the session, based on a whole bunch of other factors in body language and story and meaning and other body parts that I'm reading. But the curiosity comes back to why is this human breathing in this particular way? There's a reason for
Mm.
that. And then we go into what are they protecting? What are they trying to accomplish with this pattern?
Mm.
Right? And
Yeah.
where was this somehow useful in their life? Because there's always wisdom, fundamentally, wisdom to the patterns that have been used in their life. And where is there potentially room and possibility for change now? Yeah. And that's where we then facilitate a process of change. So, or if someone is, let's say, not breathing at all into their belly, we can ask why. Again, like, why is someone not doing that? It's probably
Mm.
because if they breathe into their belly, it's painful in some way.
Yeah.
Why don't we want to feel something? Probably because it's painful,
Yeah.
like either physically or emotionally. Yeah. So what we do with FBR is we gently bring people into their pain. Actually, it doesn't sound very nice, but that's actually what we
Mm.
do. And in that, we heal the parts that we've been avoiding. And the
Mm.
same goes around. Like, why is someone not breathing into their heart? Well, probably because it's painful. And I
Yeah.
don't know why that is. Did they have a heart? Did they have a breakup 2 weeks ago? Did they
Mm.
lose a child? Did they have a car accident? Um, do they have lung issues? I don't know exactly why that is, but all I see as a practitioner is this person is not breathing into their heart space. Why
Mm.
not? you know? And so we go into this, as practitioners, we work with this continuous lens of curiosity, loving curiosity, and the touch is informed by this lens. So the touch comes from a place of let's explore what's going on here. And I think that is important because I think what it does and what people feel with the touch, it's not a pressuring or pushing someone into a particular pattern with the touch. It's
Yeah,
different
of
to
course.
let's say physio in that sense, physiotherapy. It's where it's a bit more mechanical, I suppose. It's a bit more like if you do this thing, it will kind of click back into its place, right? Whilst we believe through this practice of breathwork, it's actually the body wants to thrive naturally. That's the
Yes.
lens that we look through. It naturally wants to be healthy and thrive. So if it's not, why not? We can ask. And then we go into there must be somewhere something deeper going on that this pattern is here. And often the physical symptoms are the last symptoms really that really occur. There's often so many more layers and deeper parts to this as well. So yeah, just I think that gives a little insight into for people that are curious also to explore the practice, either just as exploring for themselves, either in a one-on-one setting or in a group setting, to explore this way of breathing and working with touch in breathwork is it's a very deep therapeutic lens that we bring to breathwork. And I think that makes it also different as a practice. It's not an experience you do on a festival, let's say,
Yeah,
which, by the
yeah,
way, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, I love
yeah.
breathwork on a festival. It's just a very different thing. Like, what we're really offering is no, this is like really deep therapy on the body. And we're actually
Yeah.
going into sometimes real childhood patterns that aren't able to be accessed by the mind because we do work with touch and mind can't access that. Um, and we do that in these ways that I kind of just laid out before. So there's a lot to this as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you spoke really beautifully and clearly into almost why this technique is called facilitated breath repatterning, and then how important touch is in the facilitation of the breath repatterning. And I think, and again, yeah, not to demonize the one-off breathwork sessions that you may have at a festival or elsewhere, but I think for me, what I can honestly say from a personal point of view is the facilitated breath repatterning, it continues throughout your days. It's not just that one session that you have. You'll notice the ripple effects in your life. And I think when we
Mm-hmm.
speak to changing a pattern, I can't remember the number, Sarah, and maybe you'll remember, but we take a certain number of breaths every day. And if we're not doing that right or good for the body, then think of all the effects that can happen from there. The health effects, the stress. What's happening in your body is just completely changed by the way you breathe. And I know one of the first sort of patterns that I was able to shift when I started FBR Breathwork was, and our listeners may resonate with this because it can quite often show as a pattern of the anxious or over functioning or busy busy male or female, but it was a lot of chest breathing and it was short breaths and it was in my chest and I was like in overdrive and I was at work and I was trying to do 100 things and I could almost be breathless. And I don't have a physical job. I work in an office or at a front desk. But that was one of the first patterns to shift because it was in a breathwork journey that I sort of came in touch with that pattern through the facilitations. I was facilitated to bring in more of an open breath that went through the whole body, not just sat in the chest, and it wasn't short and it was sharp. And we were deepening my inhale and exhale, and we were slowing it all down. And so, therefore, when I started noticing that in my everyday life after that session, I'm like, oh, this is that pattern. So I think it also allows us to become a little bit more, I don't want to use the word control, but a little bit more aware and able to choose, potentially is the word I'm looking for, those
Mm-hmm.
patterns that come up in everyday life, or at least be aware of them going, oh, hang on, there's that pattern. And all there's like a obviously infinite amount of patterns. And I'm just speaking to that one pattern that I had. But then it's able, it brings you back into relationship with your own patterns and how your body works in given context, and then gives you choice from there. And that's why it's facilitated breath repatterning, I suppose. Yeah.
I think the point that you probably wanted to make, if I was to feel into that, was kind of around, we take 20 to 25,000 breaths a day.
Yes, that's the number.
Like for example, imagine someone's inhale is just a tiny little microsecond bigger than someone's exhale, and in one breath, that doesn't matter, like that's gonna whatever, right? But if you do have every breath of the day have that pattern of the inhale being just a little bit bigger than the exhale, for example, it's going to impact and influence that person in quite a big way, in the sense of they're gonna feel more activated than relaxed on average, because that's the pattern that they're running most of the time. And so that's what we're doing when we bring people into conscious connected breath work. That's what I said earlier, we bring them into a non-habituated way of breathing. And because we bring them into a non-habituated way of breathing, what starts to emerge is the first habit that they run. And that's going to look different for every human. So for some people, that might be a bigger inhale than an exhale. For some people, it might be the other way around. And there's all sorts of other patterns that can come with that. And then we facilitate a process of deeper harmony in that. And that's where I think the power can really be seen of, like, even if we are not aware of it, we're breathing with this pattern all day and during the night when we sleep. And what happens when we actually change this pattern? Well, what happens is that when we become more aware of these patterns and in harmony, to your point, Mel, we can actually then choose something different. But yes. And so it's on some level, I think it's a conscious choice, but on some level, it's also just the body chooses something different because we've actually shown it a different way.
Yeah, because it's now available now, right? Like potentially wasn't available before the breath work, and now the body can access that.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And I love this, because I think we're also getting into that point, and I think we've spoken about this on an episode before, but it brings in that idea that also we want the breath to be dynamic, right? And through our facilitations and the use of touch, and we can access these different patterns of breathing, we have more choice in the moment, and the body has more choice, whether it be conscious or unconscious, as you just suggested, Sara. And through, like, the touch plays such an important part of that, because if your body doesn't, for example, isn't whatever breathing into a certain area, if we put our hand on that area for you and just simply, as I said, say a cue like breathe into my hand, then you've got more of an idea of where that part is, if it wasn't something that you could feel into before. And I think this goes back to why touch is such an important part in this work, and really just from a broader point of view, so important to humans and the healing journey and the remembering back to what is available through touch. Maybe just take a breath here and notice your body, because something we've spoken about today might land straight away, or it might be something your body comes back to later. Touch is one of the earliest ways we've ever experienced the world. And for each of us, it holds different meanings, different memories, and different responses. But what's possible is that it can also become something that brings us back into the body, into feeling, and back into a sense of being supported. And maybe it's not about needing more or less, but simply becoming more aware of how we experience it and letting that be enough. So that's all from us today. Thank you so much for tuning in to We Are Woman. I hope today's conversation gave you something to reflect on, to feel into, or to carry with you into the rest of your week. Please make sure to click subscribe on your favourite podcast platform so you never miss the latest episodes as they drop. And if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a woman that would find it helpful, because this isn't just our podcast, it's all of ours, together. You can also follow us on Instagram at We Are Woman Podcast to stay connected, share your thoughts, and join our growing sisterhood. We've got some very special events planned and would love for you to be a part of them. Thank you for being here.